Joining us now to discuss this further, Trump's arraignment, Renato Mariotti, former federal prosecutor and host of the It's Complicated podcast. All right, our speculation has simmered a little bit, right? We have more to chew on this morning now that we've seen the indictment and some of the facts in the case. We've heard from Trump's spokesperson, we did a moment ago, so in fairness, I want to play a soundbite from the district attorney, Alvin Bragg, for folks at home about the charges. Let's listen.
Why did Donald Trump repeatedly make these false statements? The evidence will show that he did so to cover up crimes relating to the 2016 election. Donald Trump, executives at the publishing company American Media Incorporated, Mr. Cohen, and others agreed in 2015 to a catch and kill scheme. That is, a scheme to buy and suppress negative information to help Mr. Trump's chance of winning the election.
34 felony counts for falsifying business records. Did Alvin Bragg put forth a compelling case?
Well, he put forth, I think, enough of a case that it's understandable why he investigated this matter. I think there are still reasonable questions regarding whether or not he should have charged it. I do think that there's somewhat of a lack of specificity as to some points in the indictment and statement of facts. That does concern me a little bit. Like, for example, we still don't know exactly what other crimes these false business records related to, according to District Attorney Bragg. In other words, he didn't make clear, for example, what exact election offenses he's claiming were intended to have been furthered by these false statements. Similarly, the same with the tax crimes that are referenced in the statement of facts, but are not specified. So I think we've learned something. I think there certainly is something to these charges, but it's far from a slam dunk case, and I think there still are some questions that remain.
So Bragg wants a trial date set for January of 2024, as we laid out in the timeline a moment ago. Is that realistic, and what should we be looking for as far as next steps from the defense and some possible motions?
So that's not realistic. I would be very surprised if this case is tried before the 2024 election. And I expect that the defense is going to file a number of motions. The first motion that I think they're going to file is a motion for a bill of particulars. I just mentioned a moment ago that it's not clear to me, for example, what tax offenses, what campaign finance offenses are specifically at issue here. In other words, what does Bragg think that these false statements and business records were done in furtherance of? And he has not made that clear. He did make some statements during a press conference, but of course, a press conference is not a formal charge. So I do think the defense will ask for more specificity, and I suspect the judge will give them that. And then separately, I think they're going to make various legal motions regarding the charges. For example, whether or not a federal campaign finance offense is an appropriate other crime for purposes of the statute, whether or not there's a preemption argument regarding state campaign offenses. So I think a number of motions are going to be made, and all of those motions eat time off the clock, Marnie, delay a potential trial date, and that's why I'm pretty confident we're not going to have a trial before the election.
And who benefits in this case the further it drags out?
It's an interesting question. Ordinarily, you might think Donald Trump, right? Because delay is usually the best move for the defense. But, the former president faces a number of criminal cases on multiple fronts. He has this Fulton County case. I think it's hard to see an indictment not coming out of there. There are multiple DOJ cases. Usually you want the weakest case to go first if you are the defendant in facing multiple criminal cases. I actually think this is the case I'd probably want to go first if I was on the Trump team. And I think if he doesn't win the 2024 election, he may be facing a whole slew of cases, and he may not have control at that point over which one goes first.
What about the likelihood, Renato, that he would plead down to a lesser charge, to a misdemeanor?
Well, that's the sort of suggestion I would have made if I was representing John Doe, who was charged with these crimes. In other words, ultimately, I think a lot of people in this position would have taken a look at this case, would have tried to work something out with the DA's office. But I think that's where the fact that Trump is in politics and has a political future, or at least believes he has a political future, plays into this. In other words, giving in on a misdemeanor and pleading to a misdemeanor, which frankly I think it will be hard to defend against a misdemeanor charge here. That would be a no-brainer for most people, rather than spend a lot of money and time agonizing through a criminal case and facing potential felony convictions. But for him, agreeing to any sort of criminal offense with a prosecutor probably would have some impact on his political ambitions.
I keep thinking.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.